Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. I'm going to take you through how we've been working with developing a methodology that we call demand acceleration, and how we've done that, why we do it, the principles behind it, and how that has been applied in an actual procurement with a focus on the market dialogue. And you will see what I mean, because I also want to show not only how we do the market dialogue, but why we do it and how we have come to that conclusion that this is the way we want it to happen, and then show you how that happened also in practice. So I will take you through a little bit of a journey with both theory and practice. I will also try to show you a film in the end, and that's always exciting. We're doing that online. We hope it works. I will share my whole screen to make the transition between the PowerPoint and the movie. So my name is Lina, and I come from a tech innovation cluster called Compare. We're situated in the western part of Sweden, in Karlstad, Värmland, for those of you who are familiar with the Swedish geography. And we are the host for a 10-year initiative founded by the Swedish Innovation Agency, where we're supposed to drive a system transformation within the area of digital health. And that initiative is called Digital Well Arena. And now see if I also can share a slide. So if you start with the why we do what we do, so to say. I mean, our topic is digital health, and it's very difficult to drive any kind of transition within the field of digital health without taking the market conditions into approach. How things are supposed to spread in terms of digital health. And then you quickly stumble on the public procurement that, so to say, regulates the market conditions for a very big part of this market. And when you start reading up on the things, which I assume that all of you also have done since you're engaged in this topic, you see that there is a huge potential. I mean, 14% of the European GDP is public procurement, which could create a huge market for innovative products and services, but its potential in this area remains underutilized. And this is the way it looks in basically every country. Everyone agrees that the public procurement has an enormous potential, and everyone agrees that it, for some reason, is very difficult, doesn't really happen the way it should, and it's very underutilized. I think we are all on board on that analysis. What I want to dig into here is what we call innovation procurement. Is this the answer to that? And then we need to start taking into account that innovation isn't limited by supply, but by demand. There can be a lot of, so to say, invention happening, innovative products and services that are, so to say, developed, but if no one wants to use them, if no one uses them, they will not create any societal value. And the need, which we'll also talk a lot about, especially in terms of innovation in public sector, what is the need? Well, we need to find a real need, the user's needs, etc. Need isn't equal to a demand. You can have a very big need for something, but if you, for example, don't have the means to pay for it, there's no demand anyway. And since the public sector market is regulated in terms of, you have the public procurement rules, you've also got tons of other regulations when it comes to health tech. It's not that easy that if you develop something that someone needs, that it automatically will spread on the market. And so innovation isn't only about creating a product, it is also about creating a market. And that market rarely consists of one customer. It can, of course, create a one customer, and one great example of when an enormous market, so to say, an enormous demand was linked to one customer is the example of the NASA Man on the Moon mission. That is a very popular example in terms of mission innovation. You decided that they wanted to put a man on the moon and take him back safely, and there was an enormous demand linked to that mission. There was an enormous amount of money that he wanted to spend on that. In at least Sweden, in the public sector, you often refer to this example. That is the mission. And if we can create a mission that is strong enough, the demand will somehow magically appear. Swedish public sector, though, is not NASA. There are similarities, but there are also differences. The difference is that at least the Swedish public sector consists of 290 municipalities and 21 regions, which means that if you do a traditional, so to say, innovation procurement, the kind of function procurement, where you develop something based on your own users' needs, and the purpose is to meet those needs, in one of 290 municipalities. What often happens is that you might get something that meet the user's need in one of 290 municipalities, but it rarely scales the way you want it to be or to do in order to create the value that you potentially could. And this is where what I'm saying, is innovation procurement the answer? It depends. Without a scalability perspective, it probably isn't. So how do we change a system? Because I was into a bit of mission innovation and system innovation, system approach. We do agree that we want to create more scalable approach in order to create more value. At least that's my hypothesis. But how can we change that? And I love the idea of seeing system as a football game. You know, if you want to change the football game, you want to change how the different players interact, because you have the players, the element, you have the rules, and you have the purpose of the football game. And you want to change how the players behave, how they act. What you need to do, I mean, you can change a player, of course. You can take out me and you can put in Messi, and the players will interact with each other in a different way. That's kind of the easiest, lowest hanging fruit to make some kind of change in how people interact. But you can also change the rules. I mean, if you decide that you can take them, you will have 5 players instead of 11, or the game will go on for 4 minutes or 40 days, or you can take the ball with your hands. You certainly will get a lot of differences in how the players interact with each other, right? But it still will be some kind of sport, football. But if you change the purpose of the game, saying we are not only going to see who scores the most goals, we're going to judge on how beautiful they are, or how far they run, or how tall they are. You're having a completely different system. You will automatically have to change all the rules. You'll automatically have to change the players, and the players will interact with each other in a completely different way. So this little bit of simplified way is to see what we wanted to do with public procurement, and I will show you how that's played out. So first, we did change the purpose. Just to start with that, sorry. And the purpose with innovation procurement, so to say, is how can we create a solution that meet the needs of us as the customer and our users. But if we change that to how can we create a process with the purpose to create a solution that meets the need of the first customer and its users and scale to many. And that little distinction had us rethink what are the guiding principles, what do they have to be in order to meet this this target. Well, we set the principles based on that purpose. And we have set 6 guiding principles for demand acceleration. And soon we will come into the market engagement, so don't worry. So first of all, we decided that, well, procurement can drive development and innovation, talking about also the scalability aspect of innovation. That is a good principle. But procurement in itself is not, I mean, there's a difference between procurement and innovation. I mean, procurement is about setting a list of requirements. It can be function, it can be whatever, and then measure who meets those requirements the best. But innovation is an explorative journey where you don't know necessarily which requirements make sense to measure anything against. So there are differences, but they can be combined, meaning that you can procure the development and innovative work. And create an innovation through procurement. But a good starting point there is to use the principles of public procurement, you know, transparency, etc., for all kind of interaction. That's a very good start. Second, innovation requires room for innovation and learning, which is no news to anyone who works with innovation, but it's not obvious how that is supposed to fit into a fairly set procurement and a public sector where you want to make sure that you do the right thing, and in order to try to make the right thing, you do a lot of analysis before, so you lower the risk of mistake. But what we think is maybe you shouldn't lower the possibility or the risk of making mistakes, but rather lowering the consequences of the mistakes that possibly can happen because they are part of the process. And this one, success cannot be analyzed beforehand. It's only experienced as it emerges. is also quite obvious when you think about it. You don't know who is, if you have 7 suppliers sending in their bid for a tender, you don't know who is the best. I mean, you can guess based on past experiences and so on, but in the co-creative process, which of these 7 is going to make the best result together with the needs owner, for example? You don't know that, but you can see it as it unfolds. If you give everyone the chance to do something, you can start seeing and drawing conclusion as you go, but you cannot know beforehand. So if we create a process, we need to take that into account, and you will soon see how we do that. Interaction triggers insights. Now we are also getting closer to the market engagement side, because if we see the need as something absolute, something binary, you have the need or you don't. You find the real need or you don't. Of course, you don't need any market engagement. You can just look into your own organization, and sooner or later you will find the real actual need, and that cannot be changed or altered in any way. If you don't see it like that, if you see that interaction triggers insight, if I back in the days was sitting in my cave and I saw that my neighbor had uh, some kind of these, rock axis that you can see on pictures, my first instinct is probably to have a closer look on that one. Maybe see if I can steal it, probably copy it, make it better. Probably not like, oh no, I don't want to start with seeing a solution. I need to go back inside my cave and do a needs analysis on my rock post-its. I mean, that's not the first instinct, probably. The interaction triggers insight. That's how innovation has happened since the caveman. And by that follows that we want to engage and get inspiration of possible solutions in the process. And even if the solutions don't exist, we want to see what kind of solution could possibly exist. What could the technology be used for? And that can trigger insights in our need, and it can change and alter the need. And in order to do that, we also want to have the ones with the knowledge about the solutions. How can they be produced, etc., into the process, meaning the suppliers. So we need to get the suppliers into the process as early as possible. We need to have a starting point. But then we can see that we want to get them in earlier than you normally do. Not having a long needs analysis of a year or similar, but rather have them into the process as early as possible. And in this example I'm going to show you, it took 6 weeks from the first meeting with the needs owner, where we started lining out their need. And it took 6 weeks until we sent out the request for information for suppliers to join the process. And normally that takes at least 8 months, the way we normally work. Scalability aspects are essential, both to the client and the supplier. This is also an aspect that you normally don't take into account when it comes to innovation procurement. You do the innovation procurement, you might have a consortia of several municipalities, but you don't build in the, so to say, organic scalability into the process. But normally when something is developed, then you start seeing how could more people use it, which is often too late. So this needs to be integrated from the start, create the conditions for the scalability from the start. And this is as central as it is to the client as it is to the supplier. Because as a client, as a customer, if you are the only customer, you need to bear all the costs for development, further development, hosting, etc. of the solution. But if you are more clients, you will share the cost. This is a very natural in one way. I mean, no hospital mixes their own medicines or build their own X-ray machines, etc. I mean, you buy them from someone. But when it comes to digital solution, for some idea, this is a controversial thought. But this links to the sixth and the last principle. In order to achieve these scalability aspects, the intellectual assets need to belong to the supplier, because Karlstad municipality, it's not in their scope to sell solutions to other municipalities, for example. They don't want to own anything. It's the supplier that owns the product and is supposed to sell it. This can also be achieved through some license agreement when it comes to open source, etc. But as a principle, the intellectual assets belong to the supplier. Otherwise, the scaling is not happening. And this is interesting. When at least in Sweden, they analyzed around 1,000 procurement documents, and in all the cases where the IP was regulated, in 94% of those cases, it belonged to the client. which means that the supplier takes a higher price, of course, because they cannot get any more incomes from that development that they do. They cannot scale, etc. So it's not as interesting for the supplier, and it gets more expensive for the client. So how do we set the practice based on these principles we follow, right? We have the purpose, we have the principles, and now we need to set the practice. How do we change this behavior? How do we do this in practice? Well, here comes the film. Efterfrågeacceleration, det är en metodik för att driva innovation i offentlig sektor med offentlig upphandling som verktyg. Men det vi väver in fler perspektiv än vad man normalt gör i en traditionell innovationsupphandling.
När det handlar om innovation så är fördelarna med just den här metodiken är att man samskapar utifrån de behov som finns. Vilket gör att de tjänster och de produkter som kommer ut på marknaden blir bättre tillämpade för våra behov.
Innovation och nytänkande, det händer ju oftast i samverkan och samskapande. Det vi har gjort är att vi har börjat processen med många leverantörer som har fått vara med i processen och fått samskapa, och sen så har de leverantörerna som har haft störst förutsättningar att kunna möta verksamhetens behov och skala upp lösningen på marknaden fått gå vidare i processen. Så vi har inte upphandlat en slutprodukt, utan vi har upphandlat deltagandet i den här processen.
Utgångspunkten var att vi såg ett behov i att hitta en bra kompetensutvecklingsform för att hjälpa våra medarbetare att förstå hur det är att leva med kognitiv svikt. Och där såg vi att ett digitalt kompetensutvecklingsverktyg kan hjälpa till att enklare få våra medarbetare att känna hur det faktiskt känns att inte kunna klara av att tolka sin vardag som alla andra.
Vi har ju arbetat med 7 företag samtidigt, vilket har varit väldigt lärorikt. Man har fått många idéer, många frågor. Istället för att det har varit en leverantör så har alla tänkt på lite olika saker som tillsammans har vävt fram en helhet. Vi har fått egen tid med var och ett av företagen. Alla har haft sina egna frågor och funderingar. Vi har ju inte suttit med ett färdigt koncept. På så sätt så har ju vårt önskemål trätt fram och blivit tydligare och tydligare i takt med att vi har fått svara på alla de här frågorna. Till slut så har man matchat ihop det som har passat bäst med vad företaget kan leverera och med vårt önskemål.
I just den här upphandlingen som Karlstad kommun har gjort så gjorde vi 3 olika faser. Först var det en konceptfas på 4 veckor där 7 leverantörer fick möjlighet att ta fram ett lösningsförslag i vilken form de ville. Det kunde vara en presentation eller en film eller vad som helst. 3 leverantörer gick sedan vidare till en MVP-fas där de fick ta fram en prototyp, och sen var det en leverantör som gick vidare till att leverera den slutgiltiga produkten.
När det här dök upp med Karlstad kommun så tyckte vi det lät jätteintressant. Att få jobba så här nära behovsägaren gör att vi tillsammans flyttar spelpjäsen framåt. De har hjälpt oss att förstå hur vi kan utveckla tjänsten på ett bättre sätt. Och även gett oss möjligheten att komma i kontakt med andra kommuner och på så sätt få en bättre insyn på hur vi kan utveckla tjänsten och förstå behovet och få deras perspektiv helt enkelt. Det sättet att jobba nära behovsägare innebär att det ger oss bättre förutsättningar att sprida det här och få upp en skalbarhet.
Rättigheterna till produkten behöver ligga hos bolaget som ska skala upp, och att det bolaget då får stöd i processen och både hitta andra kunder men också jobba med sin egen utveckling av affären.
Om vi får fram tjänster som är möjliga att skala på en eftermarknad så är ju det en benefit även för oss som beställare. Då vi vet att tjänsten lever kvar på marknaden över längre tid och kan utvecklas utifrån de behoven som marknaden kommer att ställa.
Det vi har visat på med efterfrågeacceleration, det är ju hur man kan kombinera behovsanalys, utveckling och upphandling i en process med ett skalningsperspektiv. Och det tror vi är ett sätt som offentlig sektor kan driva innovation och omställning på. What I wanted to point out is that we, in this way, we've integrated the needs analysis and the market engagement into the whole process. But already before, we went out with a tender where we so to say, procured the participation in the process. We had an initial market analysis phase that was very short, but where we invited through request for information the market to show us what their ideas were in terms of solving the solution, and we asked them to send a film, a normal iPhone film, explaining how they would go about to solve that problem. And then we got 6 different companies from different backgrounds. It was innovation companies, gamification, someone that wrote technical manuals, a VR company, etc., that all explained how they would go about to address the solution, and that inspired Karlstad Kommun. So they already there got more insights into what they needed and when they saw what was possible, so to say. And based on that, they made a decision to go out and procure participation in the innovation process. And included in that that contract was, of course, also the right to use the result. So that was how we work with market engagement in order to drive innovation through public procurement. Thank you. Questions?
I actually have a question before letting the participant in, because you paid the companies during the whole process, right?
Yes, because the whole innovation process was procured. So that was a normal. It was not an innovation, normal innovation of partnership, public-private partnership, etc. It was a perfectly normal procurement of participation in a innovation process, like a consultant deal. So everyone, the initial contract was for 4 weeks and 2,500 euros per company, and with the option to prolong it. And by signing that contract, the procurement was done. The rest was the delivery. And also the ones that replied to request for information, they also got a small symbolic sum of 500 euros each. That was project money. That was the only thing that was kind of project money. The rest was procurement budget.
Do you think that heightened the incentives to be in on it?
Yes, that was what all the suppliers told us already from the RFI, just that we wanted to pay them because we saw that they are doing a work for us. They're showing something that helps us understand more, that makes it become not only like innovation theater, because startups are they often want to, public sector want to engage them in different kind of prototyping, design labs to get their ideas, but it very rarely becomes some reasonable payoff for them. And by paying them for their work from the first minute, so to say, we showed them that we were serious with what we were doing, and that we saw things from their perspective as well, and that helped. Everyone pointed that out.